Hello, I'm Phil Svitek, 360 Creative Coach, and welcome to my vlog where I essentially highlight my creative journey and extract the various lessons that I'm learning, as well as highlight the various lessons that I'm applying. So the majority of my week, not the majority, but where my mind mainly was focused was on making sure that everything for my feature film was being done in order to meet the March 2nd deadline that is to submit the film. So that at this point, that's less than a week away. And last week was all about making sure that my composer, Cody Schramm, had the various notes he needed for the score, making sure that the various graphic designers and visual artists had the notes that they needed to create the visual effects and visuals and so forth. It was also, I'm lucky enough that I have a friend named Richard Vision who helps me out doing sound design. Now, he is a Grammy-nominated musician, so this isn't like his forte, but he's so good, and I'm lucky enough that I get to rope him into this, so he'll essentially do sound design for me. Now, part of that, here's the kind of the lesson part. So he was gracious enough to say, hey, come meet me Sunday at 10 a.m. and, we'll work on this. We'll get started. So okay. So Sunday, 10 a.m. was my deadline, and before all that, I had to essentially kind of organize all the sound. So there's the production sound, but then we also did ADR, which is basically, it's when actors re-record their own lines and try to match it to what's there. And this oftentimes happens when there's a scene it's raining or there's too much chatter in the background, like you're filming in a city, things of that nature, right? Anyway, the point being, I wanted to organize everything for him based on character. So like every character had their own track of audio, every sound effect, well, not every sound effect, but like there was this track dedicated just for sound effects, music would go on, a couple of tracks and so forth, right? So I wanted to have all of this stuff prepped for him so that way he could do what he does best, and that's really cleaning up. I didn't want him to spend time organizing the project. So this took far longer than I ever hoped it would, but it took like a large portion of, pretty much my entire Saturday. I'm talking from like 7 a.m. to basically midnight. I was cleaning up. The movie right now is an hour and a half. And so I was, cleaning up and so forth. And the good news is, like, I did a lot of heavy lifting too, in that sense. I filled room tone where room tone needed to go. So his job, he's really doing the hard stuff that I can't do, because, at the end of the day, I don't want to waste his time and his talents, essentially. The stuff that I can do, I'll do. And that's been a trick of mine for a lot of things in general. And it's how I keep costs low on various projects that I've worked on, whether it be for websites, videos, and, you name it, right? My whole goal is, let me get as much of this done as I can, and then let me hire someone to just complete the stuff that I can't do myself, right? So, I highly recommend doing that for people, and especially if people are willing to help you out, like my friend Richard Vision is, so that way they're really being utilized. Like, they don't want to spend the time cleaning it up and so forth. They want to do what they do. So, that was the bulk of my week, just kind of quarterbacking a lot of this stuff. And it's been fun to really see it come to fruition. Like, the movie now takes on a whole new life, essentially. Like, I can always visualize it. And I've talked about this in the past episode where, now it's coming to fruition. But now you're really seeing like the color come in, the final scores coming in, the graphics and so forth. So now that this creative child of collectively all of ours, meaning the cast and the crew, it's coming together, and it's very, very exciting. My sort of thinking ahead, I'm trying to find venues in LA where we can screen this for friends and family, because I think that would be a lot of fun and well deserved for everyone to see the final piece. Going back to sound design just in general, one of the things that I'm also looking to do, as Richard is doing the majority stuff, I'm also kind of doing and tinkering with some of the scenes that don't have any dialogue and really filling them with a soundscape. So having some, like city noise, for example, in there, having some Foley for people walking. Like, I think ultimately the difference between an indie movie and, what's considered not an indie movie is, and I mean that in the truest of sense, not like indie movie like Jojo Rabbit or something like that, which are quote unquote indie movies, but not when you have a $20 million budget or so forth, not in my eyes. But the point being that true low budget indie movies, they a lot of times, they sound and look like that because, people cheapen the sound design. And as much as like visuals are necessary in order to have a good story and like make it look expensive looking, like with great cinematography you can do that. It's also about sound design, and I think that a lot of times when it comes to filmmakers, we overlook that aspect of it. But now that I'm in the podcasting space and listening to a lot of like audio dramas, whether Marvel's Wolverine or so forth, like you realize the importance of just sound and how it can actually create a scene visually. Like, Marvel's Wolverine on the podcast side, it's just all audio, and yet it paints a picture through the sounds. And so I want to do that, even though I do have the visuals, obviously, with the movie. So, and the more I can do that, the more I feel I can elevate the movie. So that's kind of the next strategy of mine. And really, that's kind of it. I mean, there's a couple of other things. I'm still finalizing my novel. And I'm excited to, once this movie's done, I'm excited to tackle essentially writing a how-to book of how I made this movie to inspire creatives to essentially just go out there and do it. And also, I'm excited to start tackling another fiction book as well. While this one's being finalized by the editors and so forth, I'm looking forward to, tell a different story. So that's where I'm at in the process. A little bit further down the line, I'm already thinking like, what would a second feature for me be? And you have those ideas, but I don't like to overwhelm myself. I've talked about this a couple of times, but I like to jot down ideas into a journal and so forth, so that way I have them for prosperity later, and I can always kind of refer back to them, but I don't have to overwhelm myself thinking about them right here, right now, when I know I've got all these various projects still going on. In fact, it's based on a lesson I talked about from Warren Buffett. He teaches like, make a list of 25 things you want to do, and then cross out 20 of them that let's go back. Here's the easier version. Make a list of 25 things, and now highlight only 5 of the things that you actually truly want to do. And then take the other 20 and call that your don't do list. It's not to say you can't ever do them, but just by putting your focus on them in the present moment, you're taking away from the list of 5 priorities that you do have going on. And that's how I try to tackle my life. Essentially the don't do list is my ice bucket list of things that I'll get to eventually once I finish the things that I'm working on. So sort of in a nutshell, that's where I'm at. The update will come next week of whether or not we make this deadline, how the movie looks and so forth. But we'll see. Wish me luck.